G'day junkers, just a quick video on a few other modifications that I've done to the Mahindra. So I put some old school spotties on. They're off my old car, so they were cheap. I'll probably upgrade to LED eventually because, well, with the new lights and brand new car, they're actually a little bit piss weak. But anyway, so I've installed a winch. I actually got it from Aldi, of all places, and it works good. Well, I haven't fully tested it in conditions, but it works, and it's very much like the Harbour Freight one you get in America and that. And my hand just fits in, even with a glove, so I can plug in the cable, or there is a wireless function to it. And this is the clutch in here. Have to use a different hand, but I hope you see in there. It just fitted in. Just had to remove a little bit of metal, but not too much. Now we come to, this is I installed a dual battery setup. So this circuit breaker here goes to a DC to DC charger, which I'll show you a little bit later. Don't worry about this. I'm going to put a breaker for the winch just so that no one can mess around with it. Just haven't got around to it. Something I didn't show you in the last video, that's where I decided to put the aerial. It's a town and country style. So that's the short 3 dB one, and that's where I've mounted the extension. Anyway, we go around, I'll show you the electrical system. And this is mainly, I'm showing you now because the passenger seat is removed. Anyway, so I've got an inverter. Ignore the 3000 watts. It's a lie. It's probably about 15, maybe. From China, very cheap. Now I guess one of the more interesting things, it's really hard to see, isn't it? There's an 8M 40 amp DC to DC charger with MPP solar charge controller in there. I'll talk about that wire a little bit later, but this is just a King's battery box with 120 amp hour. This is an Aldi, or not an Aldi, an Ally cheap battery monitor, and that's the shunt that goes with it. This is a power lead that powers the shunt. These leads here go to the box, the battery box itself. This lead back here and this lead here are the inverter leads, and this lead here comes from the DC-DC charger, negative and positive, with a 50 amp fuse. I'll go and hook that up. There's also, okay, so I just screwed down the terminal. So there you can see the 100 amp circuit breaker switch, which powers the inverter. You see that's come on. Turns it on, off. That's mainly for charging tool batteries and laptops, that sort of thing. Normal thing. Anyway, that sort of sits behind the passenger seat. It just fits. Ideally, It's a little bit wide out here because it only just fits and you really have to struggle to get in. Yes, that comes from the DCD charger. I described that. Oh no, this actually goes outside. So that's an Anderson plug out there, and you can trust me, you can see in the background there, that's for solar input, an Anderson plug. We can see that's the inverter standby current. And change this, we can see the voltage. I've fully charged this one. We can see how many amp hours we got, and 100%. So this will tell you what's coming in and what's going out, but it will tell you the balance of it. So if you had exactly the same charge coming in as the load going out, then it would show 0. But obviously that's rare, but this little arrow indicates whether it's charging or draining. And if it's charging, this was a little bit confusing, the backlight slowly blinks, which is kind of weird. But anyway, if the backlight is solid, then you're just discharging. I'll just turn the circuit breaker off on the, and you can see it goes back to its, basically that's how much current the actual monitor uses. Recent addition, I only tested it today, was this little thing from China that I picked up. It's a 12-volt kettle. Takes about half an hour, about 20 minutes, half an hour, to boil a decent sized cup of water. Probably about 500 ml. It's got 750 ml capacity, but no sense boiling more water than you need. And it's also spill proof, and it fit, which was quite amazing. And the outside it's a vacuum flask, so it doesn't get too hot on the outside. Now, I'm not sure whether I mentioned before about how I thought square cup holders were weird. Well, I've completely changed my mind. If this was a round cup holder, I would not have been able to fit it in with the lead. So square cup holders are the go. Now behind that I've just got, it's not a mod, I'm actually going to mount that a little bit later. And that is a 12-volt air compressor and air deflator, and behind that is just a cover. They'll eventually sit outside in toolboxes, under trade toolboxes. Now, talking about the ATEM DC to DC charger, it's good. It's 40 amps, so it's just, well, the battery is just big enough for it. If the battery was any smaller, then we'd have a problem. So there you can select your different battery types, and it tells you on your charging thing. Now this blue wire is to put towards your ignition if you've got a smart alternator. Now I do actually think I've got a smart alternator, but I think my battery is a little bit damaged because of the whole, virus of unspecified name. I've only been able to do short trips, and short trips, of course, don't really give you enough time to charge the battery. So my battery's sitting, when it's at rest, at about 11.5, which is too low. So it means that the alternator is always charging. So this wire, what I'm going to, well, cut a long story short, what I'm going to do, I think, is connect this wire up to a switch so that I can turn the feature on and off. So with a good battery on a long trip, the alternator should drop below 13 volts, which would mean this would turn off. It wouldn't charge, but even though the car was running. But on short trips, it will charge. It's something I'm going to have to test. Anyway, so I'm going to put the passenger seat back in, and I hope to see you next time. Bye.